All right, Max, time for another review. This is a monster one. This is one of the times where if you've ever kind of got into the realm of graphic novels, especially ones that are about various cultures globally, then you have probably heard of American Born Chinese. This is by Jean Yang. It's awesome. Uh, we'll dive right in. Well, actually, before diving right in, too, I wanted to clarify also my patent pending scoring metric, which I'm going to go over here a little bit. Um, so, right off the rip, you're going to see again. This is a monster score, and of course, I forgot to write the total down because I forgot to do that part. So, monster score overall for American Born Chinese. I wanted to also talk about, I think I finally crystallized in how I think about these scores a little bit deeper than how I've expressed them before. So I actually think 4 of the 5 categories here, characters, art, history, culture, and X Factor. The more I think about like what makes a great graphic novel here, especially with this idea of trying to understand different people groups, countries, etc., different parts of our globe through the use of graphic novels. I think those 4 categories to me are connected to the remembering self, because at the end of the day, even though we all live in the present all the time, I think that good art should change you over time and therefore be memorable. So if you watched a great movie but you've never ever thought about it again, I would say it probably wasn't a great movie. If it was a really great movie, you would remember it and actually want to revisit it for parts of what made it great. So in my head, the way I've converged on this now is characters, art, history, culture, and X Factor. These scores really reflect how memorable this particular element made this comic, and also how much it made me want to go back and reread it because it was so great. And then I think the readability is a little bit the odd man out, but it's like if I go back to reread this graphic novel, how easy and fun is it versus like I feel like a chore, even though I like the chore, you know what I mean? So all that being said, again, a monster score here. I'll run through the high level thing. This got so popular they turned it into a TV series, but this is such a creative, fun way. You'll notice right off the bat, ABC, right? American Born Chinese. There's a kind of Trinitarian start right off the rip, and then you get 3 different character stories as well. So again, it's very symbolic in a lot of ways. You get these A, B, and C's. So who is this story about? Well, in a high level, we have the sort of story does rotate around this guy Jin Wang. This is very much a coming of age story. You see him here holding his transformer, talking to this old lady. He is again, his family is from China, but now he's born and living in America, and he's really grappling with that identity of both being Chinese and American, as the title obviously implies. So he's he's, I would say, the main central character. And then he becomes friend with this other character, Wei Chen. And part of the story is their friendship and how it grows, how it has some trials and tribulations. That's one main part of the story. And if it was just that, their friendship, I think, again, probably would be memorable. But I think the amazing part is, in parallel to this, we have 2 kind of completely other stories at the beginning of this book. One of them about the Monkey King, who you see here riding on some clouds and lightning. A very classic figure in like Chinese mythology, the Monkey King. He's incredibly powerful, but a big part of his story is that he is a monkey and he's sort of looked down upon by the other gods who are more humanistic. And so his story is sort of about trying to conquer by being better and at the same time assimilating, becoming more like a man, which is fascinating. And he has incredible storyline. And then the third part of the story is with a very explicitly racist stereotype of Chinky and his very white presenting cousin, Danny. and so it's phrased in like a sitcom. You can see here at the bottom of this, like there's like ha 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 and claps and stuff. So I don't want to spoil too much of it, but not surprisingly, this book is very clever for taking these three very different stories and bringing them together masterfully so that they all culminate in a very coherent way by the end of it. But I gave the character score a 9 here. I'm never going to get this right. I'm always going to be looking at it wrong. I'm giving it a 9 here because in each of these three separate storylines, one of these characters is so memorable. Like I've reread this book probably 4 or 5 times at this point. This is in my small group of graphic novels I would want to reread every 2 or 3 years at the very least. It's just it's such a work of art, for in large part partially because of the characters. So the characters are all incredibly strong. There's not too many of them to keep track of. They do such a good job of having uniquely different and not overloading you with characters, while all somehow juggling these incredibly different storylines, which is so cool. This could get me flack for myself because, again, no one else is watching these. I think the weak part of this is, if I had to pick one, the art. Nothing to knock it. It's just, visually speaking, again, I think it looks very nice and it's, very readable. I like some of the creative decisions. Tons of symbolism. Again, I'm not gonna explain everything here, but a lot of Catholic symbolism throughout this, which as a Catholic, I think is actually quite beautiful. How he, 0% of preaching in this book, but he has like nice homages both to the Chinese kind of mythology and at the same time like has, I think the author himself is Catholic and he works some of that into it, which is just incredible to kind of weave those things together. But like in terms of how the art looks itself, I think it's kind of middle of the road. I like how it looks, but the art is not what I come back to this story for at all. Like it's totally solid, very readable, very presentable. I love the colors. You get some fun action fighty kind of sequences at certain points where characters are fighting each other, and I think again it's kind of, it looks nice, but I think definitely not the most memorable part. And I think in terms of like the style, it's just not completely unique. So not bad, but not the strong part. In terms of the history and culture, again, I think very strong. Again, they have a lot of the Chinese Monkey King stuff woven through this, which I think gives a cool sense of it. They have a lot of like boots on the ground experience of really living that American Chinese life. Like I think for anyone that knows someone that grew up in that world, my wife's a first generation Filipina. One of my best friends is quite literally first generation American born Chinese, and I think a lot of this stuff resonates. I know they've read this and have found certain parts of it hit close to home, where you're balancing this delicate thing of wanting to preserve your culture while also assimilating and getting along and blah blah blah. So I think they nail some of that history and culture elements. And then in terms of readability, this book doesn't get much more than a 10 out of 10 readability than what I can imagine for a graphic novel. It's just over 200 some pages, and as you can see, many of the pages are not dense with text, so you're not having to spend a ton of time on every page. The colors and the characters and the history and culture are just so strong, and the 3 different storytelling paths that you go down are so great and diverse and different, and how you're propelled through this thing. It would be so easy to sit down in a sitting and just pave through this and still maybe a month later want to reread it again because it was that good, but also that readable. So again, I think absolutely crushes it on the readability score. And then finally, this to me is like one of the few 10 out of 10 X factors. Probably think since I reviewed Shubik Lubik, where the 3 different storylines that all work together so well, and how tight the characters all come together, to me just is, again, sort of like the type of thing this medium is built for. Like such a creative, wonderful way of blending it all together. You take it at your own pace. You can enjoy reading and looking at some of the art, but as well as like on some of the different character stories. There's hidden symbolic. There's a lot of hidden symbolism throughout this. That's such clever, interesting stuff. I'll come back to one of the pages I actually just came from, but like again, the to me very like as a just as an example of the kind of really cool stuff they slip in. I wish I didn't change my page already too, but this is so I was already on this page. But just to give you an idea of like the level of interesting thought and Easter eggs here. So at one point, some of the other gods complain to sort of the master god, the god over all gods in this like in this world, and they do it though through these guys over here, which if you can see is a woman, a lion with this kind of curly yellow hair, an ox, and an eagle. That is an allusion to, in Catholicism, the seraphim, which is an angel that's like the highest of angels, right below God himself, that has the face of these four creatures. In fact, the Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, they all represent one of these characters, and again, Catholic symbology and stuff. So there's little details like this just woven throughout the story, not just in religion, but just, again, so much good stuff. I don't want to spoil too much or go too much longer on this, but a great book. This is, I think, an easy top 10 for me of any graphic novel I've ever read. I come back to it again every couple years and would want to reread it. High recommend. Really, really cool. And as a teaser, I'm going to be reviewing book I might even like even more that this guy published just last year in 2024, probably in my next video, which anyway, thanks for watching me and me, and if anybody else finds this interesting. Okay, I'm done.